my name is Mikael Olsson. I'm the CEO and founder of this company. And just so you know, this company was actually co-founded during, we had a consultancy agency, and we developed this product in order to have a support and maintenance offering for the solutions, the systems integration solutions we built. Today, we have roughly 100 customers, only large enterprise companies, no small companies at all. For being a small company, we started here in the Nordic countries, but we have customers in Canada, in the US, in France, in New Zealand, and so on. So we are expanding our business and growing with partners and customers abroad. Yeah, if you want to reach out, you will find me on LinkedIn. So please do so if you like what you see today. Yeah, so I'm actually going to intrigue you on, I know that most of you are technical guys, but if you are going to use Nodinite as a technical tool, then this will, kind of be yet another tool in your toolbox. It will be yet another license, yet another product, it will be another cost for you. You should not look at Nodinite in that way. So what I'm trying to do here in my demo now is to show you Nodinite from the business perspective. Obviously, we will also be in the latter part of this session today. We will toy around being the administrator and look into the BizTalk stuff. But I want to give you some opportunities and some new way of working with your systems integration solutions, regardless of if they are built in with BizTalk or something else. It's all about the end-to-end tracking, the end-to-end monitoring and documenting that. So hope you will enjoy this ride. So let's start. So if you think about it, and I believe you all have been in this situation, your business asked, what happened to maybe order 1, 2, 3. Obviously, you can replace order with, an invoice or a payment or a cabin booking or a lunch coupon or whatever, because you have money in orbit, right? It doesn't matter if it's an XML or a JSON or it's an order or payment. In one way or the other, you're moving money for your company. And these transactions, these are business transactions. You can think of them as money, right? So obviously, if you're stockpiling an order on the queue or stockpiling these on an FTP, or you did not get the expected number of orders, if there's an anomaly with the order, then obviously you need to tend to it. And I guess you're the go-to guys, so the business will ask you a lot of questions. So let's look at Nodinite from this kind of perspective. And this is actually what you were looking for with your SOC compliance, right? You asked for logging, you want to have the traceability, observability, but you also want the self-service to get, to answer the questions you get, right? So we understand that you have, we believe you have a lot of on-premise legacy systems talking to one another. Maybe in your case, you're using BizTalk to do this. Maybe you're starting to target the cloud, and you know what? They reinvented spaghetti integration overnight, because quite many of these software vendors, look how simple it is to integrate my thing with your thing. Just pay some random amount for some obscure price list that changes every now and then. And you will have this spaghetti integration overnight. So really need to be careful of the services in the cloud on this matter. But it's not this simple either, because you buy and sell companies. Maybe you have different business areas and so on. So you will have a quite large amount of systems integrations in production everywhere, right? I guess you feel familiar on this slide in one way or the other, right? Hope you do. So a systems integration solution, it can be quite simple. For the sake of the discussion, we're moving some information here, a file from system A to system B, right? That's quite a common scenario. I believe you have a lot of managed file transfers going on in your BizTalk, where BizTalk actually doesn't add any value. It's just transporting these messages from A to B in one way or the other. I guess this is your yeah, this is quite a normal situation for you. But it can also be quite complex with the this is obviously a constructed scenario, but a few years ago we did a small integration. We actually did an integration where we had a message passing through all these kind of systems, all these kind of applications, all these kind of integration brokers, applications, protocols, messaging standards, and so on. And we proved we could follow this message and monitor each dependency in each of these links, just to show you the possibilities. For my demo here today, I just wanted to elaborate on the fact that integrations can be simple or complex, right? And it doesn't change the fact that we want to bridge the gap between technology and the business. You guys, from what it seemed, you're quite in this area. You're in the technology stack a lot. The problem is you are in the IT department, and the business or your partners or your vendors or whatever out there that you're integrating with, they still might have questions, and you might, depending on how you're hierarchically organized, there might be trouble, right? Talking between these organizations. These could obviously work more or well, good, but still, I had this question: what happened to order 1, 2, 3? So, well, I have no idea, right? That's why you need a tool. And where should you even look? I mean, you might have one of our customers, they actually have 35 different ERP systems. So, I mean, if there's a problem with an order, in what part of the world should you even look for? So, in order to take control of your information flows, in this case, an order flow, let's start with the most important thing you can have. You didn't ask for this, Salil, but I'm going to elaborate on it anyway, because I really feel that this is where Nodinite makes a difference. And with Nodinite, you have a way to document stuff, and it's acting as a rewarding model. The more you input here, the more you will gain, and you will see that in my hands-on demo here today. So let's have some typical questions. You know, what is the order flow anyway? Who's responsible? I mean, should we even care? I mean, do we have are we obliged to do anything? And if you're a consultant, I saw one of you guys in the meeting were a consultant. So who pays for the time? I mean, what are you going to report, spend time on? And do we even have an SLA level? Surely you guys have a lot of integrations with different requirements. But how do you know this? Is this in one's head, or is it just pure luck that the right person happened to work? But you have people onboarding, offboarding the team, consultants come and go, and so on. So you really need to have a way to model the service portfolio. And in Nodinite, you can do that. And in Nodinite, we do this using something we call a landscape. So as you can see here, it's quite straightforward. We have the different systems, you know, A, B, and C, and so on. And you can link these together to present, in this case, an order flow. And let's do a demo on this. So my first demo of the day. And let's start now. You will see Nodinite for the first time. And also I will work as a user from the business. So I will not, I'm not running this demo as the administrator, right? And you see here that I'm logging in, and this is because this machine is in work group mode. Obviously, we have Windows Active Directory integration. You will see that shortly. But I forced a log on here because I wanted to be someone else compared to who I'm logged on to here. And in Nodinite, we can see that we have something called a repository. And surely you are familiar with the concept of integrations, systems, services, message types. You're working with BizTalk, so these are the schemas in BizTalk, and you're transporting these somehow, right? You move data from A to B. We have perpetual statistics in Nodinite, so you can understand traffic patterns, where did the message go, when did you receive it last, and so on. Anyways, the short story here is that you will have your order and finance or whatever payments, your integrations, you will add these to Nodinite. You are not obliged to do this, but again, I'm showcasing you a good way to work with Nodinite. And if you expand this integration, you can have details about this particular integration. This is like a Word document or a PDF. Obviously, maybe you guys are documenting on some SharePoint or a Wiki, or you're using, Excel, or I'm not sure what you are using, but you can upload documents. You can have, the cost center, which is the time report, right? You can work with the SLA, technical contacts, and so on. I'm going to show you shortly how we make use of this in the monitoring. And obviously you can print this, export it to PDFs and so on. But I'm going to jump to the landscape now. So on this particular integration, I'm showing you this landscape thing. What's cute here is you can tie one or more resources. So in this case, I tied a BizTalk receive location to this particular service. So from the landscape, I can even stop and start. So I'm a little bit early here on some of the features you asked for about managing BizTalk in this case. But just to give you an early thing here, so we can ask the business. I gave the business the ability to perform monitoring related stuff on the repository. So this means I have self-service to stop and start. We can see what's the problem on this side. And here there's some thing going on here and so on. But let's jump back to this shortly about the monitoring. This will turn red in a few seconds. So that was my short intro. If you want to read more about the repository, which is the documentation part, then you can please jump to docs.nodinite.com and you can read about the repository and this stuff that I just showed you. I'm going to make use of the repository shortly again in my demo. So be warned. Hope you like that. So actually we answered a lot of these questions. Actually we showed them all. I actually am a little bit stressed out there because we're a few minutes late in the meeting here, but I forgot to show you that this metadata stuff that I showed you in the, the tabular format, it's obviously available from in here as well. So you can jump, for example, to the BizTalk system, who's the sponsor, who's the system owner, and so on and so forth. These properties needs to be set by you. Nodinite has this cute web API. So if you want to integrate everything that I'm doing today or everything that you're doing tomorrow in this tool is available through the web API. And we have a Swagger definition on it, so you can create, get, put, post, delete, and so on. So just so you know that everything that I showed you here, you can automate for it. So I think that's a key feature that many asks for, but we have it. Yeah, let's continue. So the next thing to talk about is logging. You actually asked for this today, so heads up. So with BizTalk, Nodinite is plug and play, but we can talk about that after this first overview. So still, what happened to order 1, 2, 3? It would be quite cute if I could search for order 1, 2, 3 on my own discretion when I feel for searching for it without asking the IT department about what happened. Maybe the order didn't even appear in the system. Your partner didn't ship it through the nightly batches, or they weren't timely for some reason. So maybe I want to have a list of all the orders that failed last week, or I need to review all the transport bookings we did for some partners last week. Obviously, you can do that with Nodinite, and I will show you shortly. So you might have other questions. When did we last receive an order? And this is for compliance purposes. You were talking about maybe doing something on your own. Again, I didn't mention that actually, but the first version of Nodinite was to replace BAM in BizTalk. BAM is useless for many reasons. Obviously, BAM solves a lot of good problems, but BAM is really not a good tool, you know that. And BAM is also disappearing from BizTalk in the future. So you need to have an alternative. And we built Nodinite 11 years ago to replace BAM. So we have had a lot of water under the bridge since. So we have, it's totally bloated with features, as you will see shortly. Anyways, in Nodinite, the crash course here, you will create something we call log views. And this is an important concept in Nodinite. We are using role-based security to grant stakeholders access to Nodinite to do whatever they're supposed to be able to do. And you can have quite fine granular control of what they're allowed to do. And as you can see here, this is the user interface in a log view to search for, in this case, order numbers. And it's quite simple. You have the time, you have some search fields, and these search fields, maybe we can talk about them in after this. I don't know, how is this magic done, right? We can have that after my demo here. But obviously, we can extract data from your logging when you have the need for it. And then you will create these log views to make sure these are the search fields the user is supposed to use in this log view. And then we will present the result. And as you can see, we can group here. So, but let's do the demo. So again, I'm the demo user, so I'm still the guy working at the economy department. We have a lot of log views, only 7 for this person. It's the role-based security kicking in. Just to give you an idea here, if I start my Chrome here and jump to my dashboard, this is the admin view. I happen to be logged on as administrator. This time, you can see I did not get a prompt to log in because we're using integrated security. If I click on log, I will have a lot of log views. So that's the difference here, right? The role-based security only grants me access to whatever log views I'm supposed to interact with. And in this case, we can search for orders in this grouped thing. And let's go back maybe 30 days. And as you can see here, we have some messages. Maybe we have an order followed by an order response. And from here, maybe this user is allowed to look at the message only in a styled format. So if I look at this message, I can have a style sheet to present the data, which is quite nice because maybe the end user is not supposed to see everything that's in this message. Let's go back. This works for XML and JSON. We have liquid support for JSON and XSLT for XML. So anyway, if we share this query, so obviously, if you wanted to search for order 1, 2, 3, I mean, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to do that, right? So anyways, let's share this query. Let's jump to the admin guy. Let's run the same query. So I get the same result, but this time I have more options because on the wire, the message was actually in this case an XML. And as you understand, we can talk about this later, but we have this wizard to help you create at will. So you don't need to log to Nodinite in advance, color, order number, shoe size, whatever. When you have the need, we can do this in detail later. When you have the need for data, you will run this wizard, which ends with a reindex operation. So this is a big difference from BAM, because with BAM, you had to know in advance, you had to promote properties maybe, you had to do stuff to do the logging. With Nodinite, the logging experience is plug and play for BizTalk, and what I'm showing you here is very much possible to do with BizTalk as well. Obviously you can download messages, right? That's probably quite common for you guys. You want to have test messages from your test environments. You have something to work with. You can resend, you can repair messages given that you're granted access to do so. So I'm actually able to do repair and resubmit operations. This was the order response. But you get the idea. The self-service stuff here means that I can grant other people access to get answers. Maybe you don't want them to have the ability to look at the data, even with the style sheet. Still, they can see that the order was processed timely or not. They don't need to ask you guys. So anyway, the documentation, it's here, logging, and here you will also find the section about BizTalk. And again, we've been doing this for quite some time, so we have some nice, recommendations for how to tune. Remember, I do know that BizTalk has this rumor of not behaving nicely when you have DTA tracking enabled, but don't forget that we are, you should only have the data for a very, very short time in BizTalk, because the long-term archiving is done in Nodinite, and we have indexes, some tables in BizTalk doesn't even have a primary key. So obviously it's not built to cope with large amounts of data. Anyways, so if you want to read more, you have that easily available in the documentation online. Let's continue. So this means I will have, an answer to all of this stuff. I didn't talk that much about non-events, but as you might imagine, given that we can construct these log views where you can get an alert if a message contains city length larger than 40 characters, or you didn't get the message at all, or what happens if you get 10,000 order rows in this one order, you're supposed to only have like a few hundred. What happens if you get the same order 35,000 times? That can happen because your partners might have a problem in their solution. So they are spinning and looping and giving you the same message over and over and over again. Surely that has happened for you. And also with Nodinite, we have built-in auditing. So I think I will do that. So if we jump to the log audit part here, and let's have a look at what the demo user has been up to lately. And here we can see that these are the potentially sensitive operations this user performed today. We disabled the receive location, and we were looking at specifically this message. So it leaves a digital trace behind. So there's no room for a blame game. It's quite clear who did what when. Anyways, let's continue. Last thing on my short intro thing here is about the end-to-end monitoring. Remember from the logging, just before we leave that, we don't care if it's a Pigeon, BizTalk, Boomi, Azure, Logic App, or a function. You can correlate on shoe size, you can correlate on the order number. It doesn't matter if that information is in, in the key value, the context, track property, context property, whatever it's called in the different platforms, or if it's within the payload. We are able to extract it, which means you can correlate on it, which means you can group and do all the stuff with the search fields that I just showed you. This is really powerful. And it's not just about the technical logging, perform the logging. We also take advantage of this data. And among that is for non-events where we measure, count the numbers, or maybe you don't even want a single record, because if you got a single order with city length larger than 40 characters, then you want to get an alert, maybe. You can do that based on the logging. So let's jump to monitoring. So obviously you already saw in my first part with the repository where from the landscape, the interactive landscape, I restarted or stopped the receive location in that case. maybe I want to get an alert if the order response. You remember I had groups, and I opened a group with order response, but probably chances are, let's go back actually. Look, if you scroll down here, you will see that I have quite a few orders that did not get the order response at all. This is probably a problem for the business, right? The lady won't get her shoes that she ordered because something has messed up. So you can do something about that based on the alerts from Nodinite. Again, who started it? We saw that in the auditing. Maybe I just want to understand, an overview. Is the order flow okay? And what if you're stockpiling messages? And that happens, you know that, guys, because your receive locations stop every now and then. And this means that you are stockpiling messages on the file system or an FTP or some queue of sorts. And that's probably bad for your business, because if you're stockpiling messages you're not processing, that means you're not adding value. So in Nodinite, we have this concept of monitor views. You can think of these as haystacks. And the needles in Nodinite, we call them resources. And these resources come from our many monitoring agents. And these agents, they will interact on behalf of some logon that you configure the agent to use. So we will probe the target system. So for BizTalk, we will probe BizTalk for your applications, for your receive locations, and so on, and automatically add them, return them to Nodinite as resources. These resources, you will group them to your own liking using the role-based monitor views, and you can grant access, so one person could have only maybe one receive location granted, so all I would see would be this one receive location, or I could have the whole BizTalk experience in a monitor view, and so on. The point is, you should create a monitor view per integration where it makes sense for you, obviously, and then you will get the state, which you obviously can interact with and do stuff about. So let's run a demo on this. So again, I'm going to be the business user. So I have this angry customer on the phone asking me about a problem with some order, and I'm again the finance user, and I have a limited access to only a few monitor views. Obviously, the admin guy has a lot of monitor views, 32, but the economy guy was only allowed to see 7 of these. So if I click on this monitor view, I will get the resources that you opted to include in this particular monitor view. And here you can see that the receive location that we disabled previously, it's here. And if you want to do something with this, you can easily enable and disable it from here. Obviously, if this is a service bus queue in Azure, we built all the common functions to stop and start stuff in Azure. Interact with it. The point is, you should not need to leave Nodinite to resolve the problems that we report. Anyways, we already see stop and start. With Nodinite, part of the repository is also a knowledge base. So you can tie one or more knowledge base articles to these resources. And you can see this newspaper icon here. This has none, this has 2. So this means there are 2 articles tied to this resource. If I click on this, I don't need to look for the documentation. It's readily available. And here you can give your end users the experience of having self-service and the instructions on what to do with the problems at hand. So you don't need to search for the documentation. It's usually just one click away. And you can also see that I tied the repository model to this particular monitor view, which means from the monitoring, I'm able to read all about the different properties. And if this worked, let's see. I should have gotten an email. Look, the alert from the system, you actually asked for this. So here's a link back to my instance with Nodinite. This is what happened in this particular monitor view. And the important stuff goes down here. Look, we will send you these custom metadata attributes as part of the alert. So if you are using a webhook, you can automate, you can create a ticket in your Jira, Freshdesk, ServiceNow, whatever you have, and you can populate that ticket with these properties. So this is an example of the rewarding model. We have tied the documentation into logging. I didn't show you that, but you have a similar experience in the logging to the monitoring. So it comes back over and over again. So I really hope you like this, because this really ties it all together. Let's continue. If you want to read more about this, obviously it's in the documentation. And as I told you early on, Nodinite is an all-you-can-eat, and probably you are comparing our product with other vendors, the competition out there. But I need to emphasize that the BizTalk stuff that you are asking for is one, square here among quite many others, because with systems integration, you will have a shitload of dependencies to databases, to certificates, to file shares, and so on. It actually never ends. You get all this with Nodinite, and it's included in your one license for the fixed price. So yeah, let's continue.
Sorry to interrupt, Mikael. Just a time check, right? So I know I'm forcing you to hurry through your presentation, but I'm showing 20 minutes left, and I do want to have our technical guys maybe ask a few questions just to understand.
I think I'm almost done.
Okay.
This is I don't have that much left in this session. Actually, it's actually just to wrap it all up, because you had many platforms in many places. The competition here obviously is a lot, but with Nodinite you don't need to have this plethora of different tools. You don't need to stitch it together, right? Because with Nodinite we give you all these features in this one product. And if you're a partner, maybe we don't need to spend a lot, but obviously if you have 10 customers running 10 of each of these products, you will have a complete mess. This is why partners really like to work with us, because they only need this one tool replacing all this, which makes their life so much easier from a support and maintenance perspective. So I think we are really helping you to bridge the gap between IT and the business. One of our customers reduced the number of tickets for this IT department with 70%, which is obviously a lot. The trick was to have self-service. Short slide. All of our customers run the same version. We haven't done, if energy, then, do this special thing. Everything we do works the same for all our customers. These are all only large enterprises. Some of them are, big, really big companies. So we do have partners. We don't have that many partners abroad in the US, but we do have some guys that like us on the other side of the ocean. So let's jump to technical question. Hope you like this anyways, and it was a new way of looking into problems, not just technical stuff. So please knock yourself out with the technical stuff. I'm happy to help.
Well, thanks, Mikael, again. This was a great presentation. We got a nice overview of Nodinite. A great job of compressing it all in 30 minutes. So appreciate the rush. So I think the questions, and I'll let Satya and others on the team to ask more questions, but I can open it up by asking a few things from your presentation and from what I had read earlier. It sounds like Nodinite is a tool which is built on top of existing tracking information available in BizTalk. So the way this would work is if we want to track this message journey that I mentioned earlier,
yes,
that we have to turn on tracking on, let's say, receive location, send location, orchestrations, whatever, wherever
yes,
we feel like we need to get this logging information, right?
exactly. And you would do that from Nodinite. You can see my screen.
Right.
So
right.
if
And
you
we can do
wanted
it,
to, technically, you would, and you can do it from here. So you can
Okay,
update everything.
right.
So this is, it will take you like 2 minutes to enable the tracking on everything, and then you're done.
Right. So we do not need to go down to the BizTalk admin tool. We can
No,
do it from
no.
Nodinite.
Yes.
And it'll let us select what you're showing. It'll let us select specific things we want to log, including if you do not want to log bodies, just the properties, we can do that.
Yes, exactly.
Whatever, right? So once we set up that tracking, then Nodinite takes over in terms of both displaying that data to us as well as making sure that the system databases of BizTalk do not get filled up. It will keep moving that data into a different database, right?
It's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So you know,
and this is a big difference. Remember, in BizTalk you had this option to clean out after a specific number of days, but in Nodinite we work with the message types, and it makes sense, right? To maybe if I have an order, maybe or an invoice, maybe I want to keep outgoing invoices for 10 years. With Nodinite you can do that because you can opt, you know, how long would you like to keep the data in the Nodinite system? And this is based on the message type. This is a fine-grained control that really helps you store whatever you want for as long as you want.
Okay, great. Yeah, that'll be useful. So, okay, so the way in which we would integrate Nodinite with our system is that we just have to do maybe an installation on the BizTalk server so we have multiple servers in our production. And so let's say we have a 2-server system in production, then we would install Nodinite on both. Is that correct?
No, when you say 2, or is that 2 production systems, or is it test and prod that you're referring to?
No, 2 servers running the production system. So
okay, you have a high availability environment.
Yeah, correct.
No, you would. No, you could install Nodinite on a 3rd server if you like to, and our agent can be configured for high availability, where even if you don't have a cluster, but you probably have a failover cluster in your 2-node setup. But what we recommend you to do is to add some disks, maybe, because you wouldn't like excessive logging in Nodinite. And if you happen to, you know, fill your disks, you shouldn't stop BizTalk, right? So our recommendation, if you co-host Nodinite with BizTalk, is that you add some disks, because so you don't run out of disks just because you had excessive logging.
So what gets installed on the physical BizTalk server is just the Nodinite agent, right?
It's actually only the BizTalk monitoring agent, to be specific, because we are doing SQL to SQL copy. So when we copy the data from the tracking database, it's a job that's done SQL to SQL using a linked server. So you could actually host Nodinite anywhere on premise as long as it's, you know, can access the SQL database, preferably using an Active Directory login. So you retain your security, thing.
Okay, cool. Satya and others, do you want to ask any specific questions to better help us figure out how we do our requirements?
Yes, Salil, I can how much data we can have in the Nodinite database? You said it's
any number. Actually, we have look. We've been doing this for quite many years, and in Nodinite, your question might be a little bit, the short answer is really a little bit hard to tell you, but let me give you the short story here. In Nodinite, we have this concept of system parameters, and we have this size to split here. So we will spawn new log databases as the old ones grow either too large or too old. So in reality, this means that over time, you might end up having, multiple log databases, because you have a lot of data in these. And this also means that the current online database is usually quite small, which yields very good performance because the online database is supposed to be fairly small. We usually can cope with roughly 100 gigabytes worth of data per database. Then you will maybe need to, have multiple file groups, or maybe you need to have, a better SQL environment than just a standard one. And 100 gigabyte is roughly 100 million messages. I have no idea how many messages you're storing, but in Nodinite, the messages are, even context is obfuscated. It's encrypted, you could say. So we reduce the space. So even if you have a 15 megabyte XML file, that 15 megabyte XML file is probably in Nodinite like 30K, right? So it's a zipped, you could argue it's a gzipped thing that we have here. A SQL DBA cannot read the salary file, the invoice, the order. Actually, not even you need to be a really good developer and know the ins and outs of how we're doing this. But as you can see, this is not readable, right?
Yeah.
So
is it like you like the property, like if you disable any kind of tracking, then will not have anything that is flowing into the Nodinite database?
Yeah. You will not act in Nodinite. It's encrypted, but let me give you a quick thing here. Let's search for data from BizTalk. You will feel familiar here. So this is an older demo environment, but it's quite good because I have a lot of data here. So let me have some data from my BizTalk environment, and you will feel familiar here. So this is an ordinary, message in BizTalk that was managed, the payload. But as you can see here, you will have all the context properties automatically. And if you would like to create a search field on this message, anything here, then it would be quite easy to do, because you would run my wizard that I showed you earlier. And maybe this wizard grabs the data, let's call it anything here. And this is a big thing, actually. Look, this was the payload. So maybe I can use an XPath to resolve the, I sit this, maybe test this, and I will have 22 unique matches in my search field when I reindex for this. And this is a one-time setup, because we apply this pattern on the message type, and that's why the message type is so important in Nodinite.
So Michael, I have a quick question. So like I understand, but it's basically pulling the data from DTADB and putting it in a different relational database, right? So
it's actually okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, what I meant to say is that usually Microsoft, and what we have seen when we enable tracking in a production environment, it slows down the system, and we have multiple issues prior.
Again, this little trick bisects. You get 100% better performance in your BizTalk if you apply our recommendations, specifically these parts. That's one thing. So you get 100% better performance, usually from this script. The other one, you get poor performance in BizTalk if you retain data, too much data. The whole point here is you could have, smaller window, but we wouldn't advise you to have smaller window than 4 days. The important one is the 4 here. And that's a long weekend, because if you mess up, you fuck up your system on Friday for any reason. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's our fault or your fault or someone else's fault. 4 days at least gives us a chance on Monday morning to help you guys solve the problem that happened on Friday. So with such a short time frame in tracking, and with some of our recommendations here, we have customers who log more than 100 gigabyte tracking data per day from BizTalk. Obviously, they don't keep 4 days, given that they have 100 gigabytes per day. They need to run with a smaller window because BizTalk dies from that. But just to give you some insights, a typical customer logs maybe between 3 and 20 gigabytes per day in their BizTalk environment. That's a common scenario.
Okay, so what you're saying, Mikhail, is that if you are logging within that normal range of what you mentioned, then what from your experience, after configuring BizTalk with your suggestions, the production should not see any performance degradation. Everything should be running fine while all this data is being copied over from BizTalk production system to wherever Nodinite uses it from.
You might even get better performance, I'd argue, if you follow our recommendations. And maybe some customers, they have 30 days in their BizTalk today because they have no other options. They store data for 30 days.
Our BizTalk production is very clean right now, so because we do not use tracking because of what Satya mentioned.
But
I think our concern is that we don't want it to degrade.
Yeah, but I have, I used to be a Microsoft certified trainer on BizTalk for 7 years. I built a whole consultancy company with 65 employees specializing on BizTalk. I'm really the go-to guy in the Nordic countries when it comes to BizTalk, and I know the ins and outs, and I really, put a lot of effort in making sure. And just to give you another idea here, you can buy the performance. Look, this is a problem with your SQL, right? You have only data and log to maybe 1 or 2 volumes, right? With Nodinite.
No, so Michael, we have all these things implemented.
Yes.
And we ran BHM multiple times. We know the needs and goods of BizTalk. We don't have any access performance issues. The need of the moment is that we have a audit team. They have specific requirements. We don't have any performance issues as such in the production environment. Now it is fine-tuned for that DTA purge and archive job. We keep whatever data is required. We don't have tracking enabled. We have everything. I mean, we have some kind of logging as well and stuff like that, which we query. But there are some very strict requirements from an audit perspective they're looking for. So that's what I believe the requirement is. So basically, I believe for this product, we have to enable both the context properties and the message body tracking to enable, so that it goes to the DTADB, and then your agent moves those data from the DTADB to some other relational database, right?
But I just wanted to complete this. Look, you can run on multiple volumes in a rotating scheme. So you can really, you can buy the performance that you want.
We have it in different, the log and data is in different volumes, actually.
Yeah, good. So, but you can use this. Also, I wanted to say, even if you track from Nodinite the context, this is new with Nodinite 6. Look, you can add a regular expression thing. So you can remove, any match. So this means even if you have 100 tracked properties by default in BizTalk, in Nodinite, we can remove them to save you disk space, right? So again, this is like a 5 meter wide Swiss Army knife. Hopefully I have piqued your interest in this for BizTalk. This is a plug and play experience. You will, and since, as you mentioned, you don't want to go for full tracking, so you only apply the tracking on the flows that you are required to do so for.
So basically, we are looking for when the data or the message was received by BizTalk, and when it got completed successfully, and when it ran into error, and if it ran into error, we have to have some kind of notification sent to a specific set of people, so that so when we have the audit, we can show them that this is when it has failed and this is the action we have taken. Also, we want to log, so if there is an instance suspended, we want to log and track that if that suspended instances is there, and we took action on that. We kind of we need to have a kind of audit trail where the audit guys can query and see that there is this message has been suspended and it has been resumed, or this action has been taken.
Yeah, but you have that in Nodinite, and the suspended instances, you can manage them from here, which again gives you that. I already showed you that it's in the audit log, right? And you can interact with this message.
So my question is, are we having, like, are we storing it somewhere? I know you are pulling it from the BizTalk database. Are you storing this trail of this data?
No. Since this is suspended, it's still in the message box. So this data that I'm presenting here is still in the message box.
Okay, it's directly pulling from the message box.
In this case, yes. The monitoring is pulling from the message box. And also a quite nice feature about suspended. I think we are alone on this one. In the health, this is actually a health check report, suspended instances. Look, what did I do?
So Michael, I have a specific question. So there is, I could see, you could see suspended instances here. So are you somewhere storing, like, there was a suspended instance for this application at this point of time, and this person went in and took an action on that suspended instances, either terminated, and then again on what application it got terminated, and like if it has been resumed, whether it went successfully. I mean, do we log that kind of thing?
Yeah, but it's built in the system. If you resume an instance in Nodinite, this is what I wanted to show you. You will have this report as well, month by month, which application in BizTalk gave you the most problems, month by month, order by the number, sheer number. So we have these kind of reporting built in, which means you can, over time, you will have the report on what to fix, right? What should be fixed? What's the top priority? Because this gives you the most problems. But yes, if you manage your suspended instances, and if you either terminate or resume them or whatever you're doing, that leaves a digital trace behind, right? So in its own, you will be able to jump back and see that history, but in addition, as I showed you,
can you show it to us? So suppose you are saying there are a couple of suspended instances. Can you take action and show us if we can see it later on what happened to that suspended?
From many perspectives, I'd argue. I'm not sure about your time here now, but let's see, suspended instances. So obviously it would be helpful if you had the tracking, because the tracking will stay in the logging system. That's on the Nodinite side, right? But this particular message, I'm not sure. Let's actually have a look. So here we have a message, right, with some data, and if you either terminated or resumed this message, right, I'm not sure if this value is the event. It's not the event ID. This is the, I guess it's the messaging ID, but you will be able to find these messages in the logging in Nodinite. We try to give you the same experience as you have in the BizTalk management portal. That's quite important for us, right? Actually, I wanted to copy that. It's a good thing having demos. Interchange ID. Let's see. Yeah, but you have the data here.
So Michael, I understand you have whatever we can see in the BizTalk management console. We can see that here. I understand that, and we can resume it. We don't even have to go to the.
No, never. You will never. You will never use the management console with Nodinite to fix problems.
Yeah, so we understand that because we can just go here and do all the management tasks and administration tasks. So my question here is that after you resume this instance, can someone like so some of my teammates or the audit guys can go and see that what happened to this suspended instance and where it was in the message journey, and like they can trace back this message or this file dropped in the receive location resulted in a suspended message.
Yes.
And this person went ahead and resumed it, and this is what the final action is, and it went successfully.
Yeah, and also because obviously you need to do some log views to customize, the specific search conditions that you would like to see. But you notice that a message that is hammering on an endpoint, if you resume it, it will retain its local interchange ID, right?
Okay.
So just by grouping on the local interchange ID, merely by doing this and having, where the log status was maybe a bad one, we can see that we did multiple attempts. So I have actually tried to resume this message at multiple occasions, and so you will have the full trace of that, and it will probably eventually be fixed. Actually, you can do quite complex stuff also with the post group filter that we have, because maybe you want to say that I want to find all in the logging, all the interchanges where the last one is still an error. You're not interested in the ones where the last one is maybe OK, because that has been shipped. So you can do that with these complex post group filter stuff as well. I'd argue that you have the full traceability that you're asking for and much more with this tool, and you have it plug and play. More importantly, you don't need to add pipeline components or thing. Obviously, if you want to do that, I actually helped a customer the other day. They were forced to add logging in their orchestrations. So we built a cute little thing that is utilizing our standard components to do custom logging. So essentially, we created our JSON log events from orchestrations using a simple component. So in their expressions, they did logging. It was against my recommendation, but they wanted to do it. But if you want to log from other sources, and this is really the trick in Nodinite, why we have such an extensive support for logging for the many platforms, because we don't care if this was from BizTalk or some other product. And especially cute is that it's the data as it was on the wire, right? So if it was a flat file, then it's still a flat file. Are you aware of the unparsed interchange stuff in BizTalk? 100% of all the messages inbound, you do have pass-through scenarios, right? You don't have any pipeline components. You merely move data, right? Are you familiar what I'm talking about?
Yes.
So for example, look, in BizTalk, before the disassembler, this message was unparsed interchange. Still, you can see in Nodinite, we did the translation here. And this works even if you have a pipeline for a flat file, for example, because we are interacting, we are going back to BizTalk, asking you this port about its configuration to retrieve the schema from the port. If it's a pass-through thing without any pipelines, this is XML, it still works. But we have another cliffhanger here. Let's say that you have an endpoint in BizTalk. Then in Nodinite, you can actually override.
So Michael,
override it.
most of the applications that we are targeting here for this use case, it is file based. There is no endpoint. It's file based.
Yeah, okay, yeah, but
it picks files from a file one.
Yeah, but you can override the message type in Nodinite using this advanced setting on the endpoint level. So if you want this to be this message type on that port, knock yourself out. But this is really useful for these cases when you have pass-through scenarios, because unparsed interchange is not a good candidate in Nodinite to work with the search fields. So this means even if you don't have any schemas, you don't have any pipeline components, it's a flat file, it's an XML, it's a JSON, you can still claim it's a specific message type, which will make your life so much easier when it comes to extracting search fields, right? Because an order number, you have different expressions. I already showed you that in my demo with the search field wizard. Yeah, this is the one. So in Nodinite, we will extract with those expressions, regardless if it's an XML or flat file or from the context or whatever. You can even write your own plugins if so. We have some customers who have a lookup. So in the message, it says ABC, but you do a lookup using your own plugin to return 1, 2, 3 for ABC. So the business can search for 1, 2, 3, even though it's ABC in the message.
Okay, yeah, right. That's it.
Yeah.
So Salil, if you have any question, other question.
Yeah, no. So I was going to say that I think we are close to winding up for now.
Yeah.
So Mikhail, again, I think this is a great demo. I think we understand how this will help us with our logging needs. We need to regroup, think about it, talk about it. And I think as a next step, if this looks interesting, Mikhail, correct me if I'm wrong, but you have a kind of a trial period
of course.
we can use the product in our
we don't charge you for a POC, and if you want to get started in the install and update guide, there's a step-by-step, and you should probably fix the environment and the security, the service accounts, maybe some firewall stuff. When you are done with steps 1 to 9, please call me, and in a 2-hour session, we need 2 hours in an educational form. Obviously, if you want to try this on your own, knock yourself out, you will run these steps. For me, I could install Nodinite and configure it for BizTalk in less than 15 minutes, easy. But in an educational format, it will take me 2 hours to guide you through the steps and make sure you understand the steps. So you will need to fix the environment, either install it on your own or get some help to do that. It's a step-by-step guide. And then obviously it's time for you to perform your POC, and maybe there are some, after post installation steps in a POC. Sometimes you don't care about the backup, sometimes you don't care about certificates and so on, but maybe those are topics of interest.
I mean, we would set it up in a lower environment, obviously. And how long do we have for this trial? Is it
look, I need customers next year. If you need a trial until the summer, I have no problem with that.
Just making sure.
But obviously I think that you should have, the simple scenario, a more, the more complex, the not standard scenario, and then you have what we call the pig, right? You have this one odd bird. So I think that you should at least have, I mean, what are you going to prove, right?
Right. No, so we will have our scenarios ready of what we want to do, so that we have a specific target in mind for POC. And we also want to measure the performance, make sure BizTalk is working, without issues after we implement and Nodinite is running. So let us regroup. We'll get back to you, Mikhail, and see how we can take the next step.
But think more than just BizTalk, right? Because you have all the other dependencies, you have other stakeholders, you have regulatory demands, you have, you know, all the, it's not just about BizTalk and technology.
For sure. Yeah. So we are starting with a very narrow focus, and I understand that. And I know Nodinite is a much bigger hammer than what we need. So we can get started small to make sure that it fulfills our specific needs, and then obviously look at the other features and see how we can use them.
And you don't need to be cheap, right, about the features, because it's all included. So
it's
knock yourself out. It's you know, all you can eat. And I think you should use that to your advantage. And the same goes for us, because we don't want to annoy you with ever-changing price lists and you know. In the end, we tried really hard to make sure that your digital, you know, the blood stream is working. Instead of blood, it's money, but it's almost the same.
Almost the same, right? Okay. Again, thanks. Thank you, Mikhail. And we got a lot out of the demo.
So, but I'm looking forward. If you want the follow-up session, or you want to go, you know, specifically into BizTalk, please prepare some questions, and we can guide you on my machine first, and then move on. But if you want to do the POC, you won't get an invoice.
Okay. Yes, Satya, go ahead.
I have a question.
Yes.
Hi, Mikhail. It's very nice demo. So one question, is there an alert mechanism from Nodinite?
Yeah, of course. So in in any monitor view, right? So let me show you how I got the email from my order monitoring flow, right? So here I had my haystack with my dependencies. And in here, the administrator can opt to use a variety of plugins. So this is your question. How do we alert the outside world? And we ship Nodinite with 4 different plugins, which 2 are more of interest, right? It's the email with options and obviously the webhook thing. So on the monitor view, you can override the default recipient list. You can target different stakeholders in the different views. If you want to change the style sheet, you can do that. If you want recurrence, you can do that. Maybe you're just interested in the error. Maybe I'm not interested in the positive alert, right, when it returns to normal operation. The webhook, actually, I think I want to show you that on the high level.
I just want to check the REST. Is there a REST API that Nodinite exposes? The reason I'm asking, I just want to, in future, I want to integrate this with some ServiceNow automated incident for ticketing.
But you get, you can do that. I showed you early on that we have this web API, and from this web API, everything that you saw in the tool to get the resources to do whatever you're doing, it's all here, right? With the get post. So yes, you can integrate with your Erlang or Java or C# or whatever you want, even with BizTalk, you can do that. Let me just conclude the discussion with the webhook. As you saw, the custom metadata are shipped in the alert. I happen to style them in an email, right? So it looked nice, but this is really quite good because you can have your own logic. If this is an error with SLA level, you know, gold, maybe you want to integrate this with your Jira, Freshdesk, ServiceNow. You have all the data in the alert. You know, we are sending you the monitor view, the resources, everything in the alert. So everything you saw in the email, you will get that in the webhook as well. And this means you can easily integrate with, you know, whatever, right? You don't need to do a custom solution. You only need to provide your webhook with your own logic to do whatever you want based on the alerts, which has all the information you should need. Yeah. Was that a good answer to your question?
Yeah, very much. I got my answer. Yes.
So if you want to ship an SMS, maybe it's built into your mail service, so you can push an SMS through the mail service, or maybe you're doing it, you know, from any other product. It's really hard for us to give you, support for several hundred other stuff out there. So we tend to try to solve stuff with webhook. We use this technology also for resending messages. You can opt to resend to a webhook, which means you can even invoke a web service with a client-based certificate, which would be quite hard to, how would you configure Nodinite in a log view to have the client certificate to do the resend operation? I mean, that would just be messy. So it would be much easier to do through a webhook that you can unit test, control on your own, and then just simply use it.
Yeah. Okay.
I hope that I hope you really enjoyed.
We did. We got a lot of information out, Mikhail, and so again, thank you, and thank Mehtab for setting this up.
Thank you.
I will get back to you all for the next steps.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Nice.